Welcome to the 61st edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show, the final show of 2025. I'm Kyle Klingman. That is Scott D. Beck. Before we get to what we're going to get into, which is we're going to give out end of the year awards. We have 13 categories. I have my pick. Scott has his pick. I don't know what Scott has. He doesn't know who I'm going to pick. And we're going to hand out who we think are the best in different categories. So we're going to talk about that. First, let's get to just a couple things. The Women's Wrestling Forum, which we had talked about, we showed a graphic that is up right now. So if you want to find out more about women's wrestling, just some of the issues that matter, not the results, but just what women go through with making weight, with social media, having bonds with other members from other teams. That is up right now. We'll show the graphics so you can go watch that. So I appreciate the women who participated in that. It was an outstanding conversation.
Yeah, I watched it, Kyle. I thought it was fantastic that these athletes and young ladies were willing to be very open about a bunch of topics that, you know, um, I think would be important to a lot of young wrestlers and other people pursuing the sport. So, thank you very much for doing that. And I think it's a good product, and I think it's going to add a lot of value.
Never too early to discuss the
Hmm.
NWCA National Duels January 9th and 10th. If I had to come down to it and say, what is your absolute favorite event that you go to in any given calendar year? US Open's on there, Women's Nationals. It's a tie probably between Women's Nationals and the National Duels, but if it comes down to it, this is my Super Bowl. I love the National Duels. I love dual meet concept. It's 1 mile from my house, so I walk there. It's everything to me. So make
Yeah.
sure you follow this. The teams are out. We'll post that link. We'll show you how to get to that, but it's going to be a lot of fun. There's actually a Division 3 element this year. The only D3 team that is not competing in the D3 only is North Central, of course, but there's a Division 3, NAI, and then an all divisions 16 team bracket. So there's going to be three divisions for the women this year. Can't wait.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, and the women's component of that event has come a long way. It's exciting, and the ladies really get into it, to say the least. So yeah, it's a great event.
Triple Crown winners, where you had Iron Man, Beast of the East, Powerade. I love that the NWCA had the foresight to have a Triple Crown. Marley Solomon. A lot of people think it's Marley. We're talking about fixing pronunciation the entire year. It's Marley Solomon. Taina Fernandez and Violet Leisure were Triple Crown winners. They dominated their way through, so congratulations to them. And thank you to the NWCA for coming up with such a great concept. This is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and it's not easy to win those three tournaments, and all three of those athletes are phenomenal.
This could be a trend if they wanted to do this, say, we're going to make this freestyle. I think this would be a good way to introduce it, national events, and say we're going to go freestyle only so that there's a national tournament outside of the regular season to make it freestyle. I don't know what the vision would be, but Super 32 does freestyle. Of course, Fargo's
Yes,
freestyle, but it could be a good concept.
I mean more freestyle equals more better in my opinion, just for a number of reasons. As a product to watch, number one, and I think number two, just there's no reason for these ladies to wrestle, folk style. They're going to be wrestling freestyle in college and internationally. So I just don't really get that.
And final topic before we get into our end of the year awards. I've been meaning to bring this up for 7 months, finally remembered. But one of the things that happens with the US Open, I don't know if you remember this, Scott, but they have the girls high school recruiting showcase.
Yes,
The,
of
the,
course.
the language that gets used when the girls win that, I've seen this over the course of the last several months, is they say, I went to the US Open, or I won the US Open, or I placed at the US Open. So you see how we have this native language, how we're lumping all of this together instead of saying it's the girls' high school recruiting showcase. It's a lot more prestigious to say I placed third at the US Open when it's not technically the US Open, but
Yes,
you see that language happening.
it's also weird because for the high school boys, they call it the U.S. Open.
They
The
do.
wrestling, for the age group U.S. Open. So it's a little weird that they don't label it, that they label it the ladies' high school, the girls' high school showcase, as opposed to the U.S. Open.
Yeah. And
It's a
so,
great event.
yeah,
That's
it's a great event,
good.
but I would probably do the same thing too. Just say I placed third at the US Open because it
Yeah.
sounds better.
Going back to Japan as we always do, and we're going through the results of the tournament last week. And I'm talking about who's going to be competing at 62, who's going to be at 57. We're naming all these World Olympic champs. Only with Japan can I leave out Tsugumi Sakurai, who's the only athlete, man, woman, or beast, that ran the last quad, winning 3 world titles and Olympic title. But she wasn't even, she didn't compete in the tournament, and I didn't even mention her because it's so deep that you could like leave out the 4-time world champ in a row. It's crazy.
All right, we'll get into our 13 categories. First category, I would be surprised if you don't pick who I'm going to pick. And if you do, we are going to have a lengthy conversation. U.S. Women's Wrestler of the Year. There's no other nominations on my list. It's undisputed. It's Helen Maroulis.
Next topic, Helen Maroulis just came back, won a world title, which had been elusive. She'd been winning medals, won another world title in a very difficult bracket, and had an excellent final match against a very tough North Korean opponent. And that match was very nerve-wracking at the end, but just a phenomenal year for Helen. She wanted to win that title. She said she was done just taking bronzes or silver. She wanted to win the world title. She went out there, took care of business, and looked very well. Looked very good.
Slam dunk there, starting out. First award, Helen Maroulis. Second one, not as easy. Women's College Wrestler of the Year. On my list of nominees, Kennedy Blades of Iowa is on there, Macy Kilty of Iowa. You had the two Nigerians at William Penn. You had Christina Ogunsanya, Esther Kolawali. You have Christelle Rodriguez at Doane, who made a world team. But for me, it's always been Kylie Welker from the University of Iowa. She won the 180-pound division. She's just been that dominant force. She's been the linchpin of that Iowa program. It's what Iowa built the program around. The very first recruit that Clarissa Chun got. Kylie Welker has been that consistent force. I think she's the most dominant. I think she's the best wrestler in college wrestling right now. Your pick, Scott Beck.
I have Kylie Welker, Kyle, for pretty much the same reasons. I think they were all good choices. A lot of great wrestlers with tremendous accolades at different, kind of breakout periods. But I think Welker just really just looked awesome and jumped levels during the year, and nobody really tested her at all during college.
Women's High School Wrestler of the Year. I think it comes down to three: Morgan Turner, Taina Fernandez, and Everest Lidecker. Morgan Turner won her second U17 World Championship and looked good throughout the course of the season. Of course, we've talked about Taina Fernandez. She won her second U17 World Championship. She's only 16. She wrestles at college opens and does well. Two known losses that we've seen since she's been in high school, and they were both the senior athletes. But when you reach Final X, as Everest Lidecker did, she got to the finals of the U.S. Open. She won the World Team Trials Challenge tournament and then got to Final X, dominated her way through the U20 World Championships this season. I don't think it's any question. It has to be Everest Lidecker.
I agree. I mean, she also won the Bill Farrell and took out a very good a very good Mongolian. I mean, she just was spot on this year. Just wrestled phenomenally well. And the other two athletes who look, they're both phenomenal. And Turner, really, I thought had a great year, a good comeback year for her, and just looked really solid. And Fernandez is Fernandez, and they'll both probably at some point get this award, and do great things. But I just think the fact that Lidecker was able, and it's no fault of the other two athletes because they weren't old enough to necessarily compete as seniors, but the senior accolades. I'd have to go with Everest as well.
To be able to win a U20 World Championship like that and to dominate through, and you watched your finals match where she won 8-0 and just looked fantastic throughout the course of the season. And going up to the senior level is never easy when you have to go against competition like that and be successful. And she made a lot of good wrestlers look average.
And well, she just knows how to wrestle with her body and her style, and really is good from all positions. What I mean, there were matches I thought, okay, this person's going to give. I thought the Bill Farrell finals match against Mongolia was going to be a good match. She just tackled the girl pretty quickly. So who's very good. So yeah, I mean, she just has it all, as the other two do as well. But she's just a level above at the moment. I mean, and again, we don't know where Fernandez is because she can't wrestle in these single terms. She's too young, which is an insane concept. Um, it's going to be she's 16. So I don't know what does she turn 17 in 2026?
Yeah.
Yes, so she can't even wrestle the seniors next year, the year after. So it's crazy. It's just
Pretty
crazy.
amazing. In
Yeah.
evaluating Everest Lidecker, I hadn't even thought about the Bill Farrell being factoring into what her credentials were. And then once you say that, it really heightens it even more what she was able to do there and dominate her way.
Uh, yeah, and we were just, hanging in the same area before, they're both Valiant people, with Michaela. And she's just confident too. She just, she's like, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the match. Like, she just has, I'm sure, I'm not speaking for her head. I'm sure she may have nerves here or there, whatever, but she just likes to fight, likes to go out there and likes to wrestle good people and then just takes care of business. It's very impressive.
Women's College Coach of the Year. I think it comes down to two for me. Ashley Flavin, Life University, Joe Norton, North Central. Ashley Flavin led Life to its first NAIA championship, set the all-time record since it became a sanctioned NAIA championship sport, won by 70 points, six to the finals, three champions, dominated the national duels. They only dropped four matches out of 40, so they won 36 of 40 matches at the national duels. Ran the table against all the NAIA competition. Fantastic season. But here's why Joe Norton from North Central is my pick. If you know the history here, North Central won the NCWWC championship in 2023. Iowa came in. North Central had it teed up to win in 2024. They had everything right. They had a big monster day one, and then Iowa went and took it from them. They lost two of their biggest hitters, actually three national champions. They lost Jaslyn Gallegos, they lost Yelena McCoy, and they lost Alara Boyd off last year's squad. Iowa adds Macy Kilty and Kennedy Blades. And after day one of the NCWWCs earlier this year, North Central took the lead over the University of Iowa. Everyone knew it was going to be Iowa's. Iowa was going to be a runaway favorite, but to build a team and to come back and have a better tournament in 2025 going against an immovable object in the University of Iowa, I think you have to give it to Joe Norton what he's done with a Division III program. When you think apples to apples, you think about Iowa and all the Nike gear packages and the big room and the name of the Hawkeye Wrestling.
And the scholarships, sacredness of Iowa. I mean, in Iowa City. I mean, in Coralville, that arena that they have. They pretty much have their own arena. I mean, it's crazy. It's David and Goliath for sure. The fact that they were ahead, I agree with you. John Norton, I think, and actually did a phenomenal job. She does a great job. Her and her husband, Christian, and for them not to get it's kind of weird. If you say like, well, for Ashley not to get it when she won the national title, but I just think the competition level and competing against I was just and to be able to compete with that with the lack of resources is unbelievable.
And
So
although this wasn't a category that I had given you before the show, I'm giving North Central Fans of the Year. What they did to elevate the sport, they brought a ton of people there. They knew how to be fans. And to think that you have a Power Four program that is getting upset and chanting back and forth with a Division III program in Naperville, Illinois, just shows you the level of what they've done. I'm sad that at some point Division III is going to split off because I think it's going to hurt women's wrestling not to have North Central in that category going against Iowa, McKendree, Grand Valley, Lehigh. I think that's going to hurt women's college wrestling because of what Joe Norton has built at North Central. I know it's going to go in that direction because you have to have a competitive advantage or you have to be at a level playing field for these Division III schools. I get that. Like I said, after day one, to have a lead over Iowa, that was monumental.
yeah, for sure, amazing job.
Next category, performance of the year. I had a ton of potential nominees for this. I had Japan at the 2025 Worlds not sending its best team. I had North Korea at the 2025 Worlds. I had Brianna Gonzalez's run at the 2025 U.S. Open, gets fifth at the National Collegiate Women's Wrestling Championships, third at the U23s, and then wins the U.S. Open over a tough, loaded field. I had Helen Maroulis at the Hungarian Open, where we said this is the best Helen has looked since 2017. I had Everest Leidecker at the U20 Worlds, her run. I had Helen Maroulis at the 2025 Worlds, but my pick is going to be Life University's run to history, dominating the field. That's my performance of the year, winning by 70 points, dominated the national duels. As we mentioned, 36 of 40 individual matches won. Life University is my choice for performance of the year. Scott, the floor is yours.
My performance of the year is it's a little off the run. There's a little bit of a backstory to it, but basically, what I think the performance of the year is Haruna Okuno winning a world title of 53 kilograms for Japan. Because first of all, to make the team, keep in mind this is a fourth world title, so she had won two when she was 18 and 19. Didn't win again until 2023. Didn't make the team. Comes back this year. The heir apparent at 53 kilo with Fujinami going up is Kyuka, who was a world champ at 55. She went down. Okuno beat both Kyuka and Makeda, who's an Olympic champ and a multiple world champ, to make the team. Then a very difficult weight class. Takes out the North Korean in the semis 2-1. Other than that, takes the first couple of matches, dominates. Takes out North Korea 2-1, and then in the finals, one of my favorite wrestlers, Yepes Guzman from Ecuador, who's great. I thought, let's see where she is. Can she be? She was up 7-0 on Fujinami once, and then got pinned, tacked, and then Akuno controls her 7-0, and there's a beauty to it. And Akuno, USS had her issues. She's beaten Sarah and Zakara in the finals of her first two world titles, but the idea that she's like this, positional assassin. She's just so perfectly positioned. When she goes, she goes. She almost never makes mistakes. She's exceptionally patient. To me, that was my off-the-run performance of the year.
Next category, match of the year. So this is one individual match which stood out above the rest or stood out from the pack. I had several nominees here. I had the Adugo Wachukwu versus Alara Boyd in the U.S. Open semifinals, where it was back and forth, and Adugo had to come back and finally reach the finals of the U.S. Open. Also had the 50 kilogram world finals between North Korea and China, and the celebration was incredible. 57 kilogram world finals, Helen Maroulis wins it right at the end and wins her fifth world Olympic gold medal. Had the 53 kilogram world quarters, Antim versus Zhang. That was a 9-8, just an absolute shootout. You had actually mentioned it on a show. But I'm going to go to Fargo. I'm going to talk about the Jacqueline Buzakis versus Katie Valdez Fargo finals. Neither wrestler was happy at the end of this. And when you watch it, it was Katie Valdez making a comeback after Buzakis got a huge lead, and then you have Buzakis fighting off her back for 30 seconds, over 30 seconds, and does not get pinned. It's one of those memorable matches that just sticks in your brain. That's my number one. Scott, what is yours?
Well, first I would say that was a phenomenal match. We've talked about the match, but I just love Valdez's moxie. Just the way she walked back into the center. She's getting annihilated. They go out of bounds, but she believed. You could see it. So it was amazing. And a great job by Buzakis. So hang in there. Okay, I have a tie for my match of the year. Okay, my match of the year is a tie. And they happen to be the same two people having two matches. And they were the Grace Boulin Ringasi finals at the European Championships, which was an amazing seesaw match. It was won, I think, by Boulin 11-8, but it was a back and forth match, phenomenal match. People are talking about the match, and it's this great match. Then leading into the ranking series in the Hungarian Open finals, they're announcing it. They're talking about how great this match is going to be because the first match is so great, and it's going to be a letdown. And it wasn't. It was just one of the best matches I've seen. Those two just go at it, and this was an opposite. The other one was, kept going back and forth. This one, you start the match, Ringasi's up 6-0 and gets a back exposure. Then Boulin comes back. almost gets a fall, then takes a lead. She's up 8-6. Then Rigachi gets a takedown with multiple guts. He's about to tech her. She's up by 8, and she goes for the last gut. Bullet steps over and sticks her. So it was just a crazy match. So I give a tie to the European Championship Finals and the Hungarian Open Finals. Bulin Rigachi from Moldova and Bulin from Norway. Just unbelievable. In my opinion, two of the best matches of the year. And you know, I rewatched the Helen match yesterday while we were preparing for this a little bit. I wanted to go back and look at some of the matches. That World Final, see, the issue with that match, that match is a masterpiece in wrestling by Helen, and it just really, it's unbelievable. To the layman, there weren't that many points in the match, but it was an amazing finish in the match, and resiliency by both wrestlers. How Helen didn't give up points at the beginning on the fireman's carry was unbelievable. So that match, in my opinion, would be right after. But there was a lot of good matches. We watched a lot of wrestling, and there's a lot of just bad matches. But this is a great product. We both love it. It's only getting better. We talk about that, and it is just if watching these high level athletes and the young ones and the older ones. But it's just a great product. It's a great sport to watch, and there was just a lot of phenomenal matches.
Surprise of the year. So this is something that maybe came out of the blue. You weren't expecting. I had a few nominees before I get to what my surprise of the year was. Skylar Grote taking Amit Elor to Deep Waters, the 2-1 match. That surprised me. I was surprised that Amit Elor withdrew from Final X. Going retroactive, since we didn't do this show, but it continued on into 2025, just Jason Mormon's departure from King. I don't like how they handled it at King. I'm glad that he is at Tarleton State, and I'm glad he's in women's wrestling. We need Jason Mormon for the sport. He's a championship coach. But for me, surprise of the year, North Korea placing second at the 2025 Worlds with 6 wrestlers. We talked about how hidden they are, how secretive North Korea is, but for what they did to come out and do as well as they did with 6 wrestlers against Japan and get second place, that was my surprise of the year. Scott, what is yours?
Kyle, I'm going to agree with you on that. We were both stunned as we watched it evolve in the tournament, and they actually lost, a heartbreaker, in a match. They could have done even better. So yeah, that was a big surprise. And I'd also give an honorable mention. I think the emergence of Aubrey Krazer beating 2 world senior world. She beat Hui from Norway, senior world bronze. She beat Tak Tak from Mongolia at the Bill Farrell semis, senior world bronze. Beat Mikhail in the finals. I mean, I didn't know Krazer was at that level. We'll see. She's wrestling probably right now, later, Yanyak in the finals of the Midlands, which I want to see, But I think the emergence of Krazer, I'm giving an honorable mention to. But I definitely think that North Korean performance is the surprise of the year. I mean, it's a surprise. It's like an expected surprise, almost like where I didn't know. I knew they were going to be good, because I watched them at Asians, but that good, it's a surprise. You're like, how do they compete at this level? Like, who are they training with? How did they do this? But they surprise us.
And that goes into the surprise of the year because you just wonder, how does North Korea do it? Because you don't know about their system. You don't know how they're training. You don't know who's training them. It's just so secretive. And then
Yep,
for them to come in and do that well, it was a surprise to me.
it sure is. And I actually, it's a difficult country to live in. So my heart kind of goes out to having to live that existence in that country. It's not a good place.
Next category, entertainer of the year. So this is the wrestler that entertains us the most. I had a few on this list. Sage Mortimer is entertaining. Audrey Jimenez, she just goes out and blitzes people. She's so fun to watch. Aduga Wachukwu with her throws. Bella Mir is so gutsy. I just love watching her. She's entertaining. Bella Sepak, who takes some losses, but just is going to go out there and throw the kitchen sink at you with her couple of moves. I just love watching her wrestle, but I think it has to be Kennedy Blades. Just the suplees and what she does and the energy she brings and just the fanaticism she has. Entertainer of the year, I think has to be Kennedy Blades.
That's who I have down on my list. And And by the way, this is not like rigged. I'm not just agreeing with Kyle on everything. Like we actually did this separately for the most part. And I just think what Kennedy's done, obviously she's phenomenal, but she gets the joke and she knows that the fans want to see her launch people, and she launches people. And it's at the level she's wrestling. It's not just easy. It's not that easy at the World Championships to throw people for five, 4 or 5, and she does it, and she's willing to do it. It opens up, and it's fun to watch. So yeah, I agree with you on that one as well.
Favorite international wrestler. So this has nothing to do with results. This just has to do with personal preference for us. So it has to be a non-American. That's the only stipulation on this award. I had a few nominees here. Lucia Yepes of Ecuador. I love watching her wrestle. Just has that great blast double and just fun to watch. Onishi from Japan. Just really had fun watching her the entire year and watching her develop. Ringasi, Fujinami. The North
She
Korean,
didn't really wrestle this year, but I don't know if she counts. Can we
yeah,
count her?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
She did. She won the
Okay.
U23s, and this is just who
Okay.
your
Oh, right.
favorite
Yeah,
is.
sure.
And then
Okay.
the North Korean who won it at 50. Just, I think everyone fell in love with her emotional response and how excited she was. But for me, it's someone that didn't even make the World Championships. It's Canada's Katie Duchak. Have just enjoyed her, love her personality. She's at 50 kilograms, and she just goes out there and puts it on the line every time, just in entertaining style. She could be in the entertainer of the year category, but I knew she was going to be my favorite international wrestler. So that's why I'm giving it to Katie Duchak from Canada, 50 kilograms.
Definitely puts it on the line, and it's fun to watch. I'm going to go with Fujinami then because, yeah, I mean, she wrestled in the senior worlds, but she is my favorite wrestler, period. And I stand by, will be, she's healthy, the best female wrestler ever. Um, that's what I truly believe, and I maintain that. I also like, who else was I like Yepes Guzman. As you mentioned her. I also like the heavyweight world champ Riasco from Ecuador, another Ecuadorian. I like the way the Ecuadorians wrestle, and Riasco's fun, and she, those blast doubles, and she's got a fun spirit, and I agree with you. There's a place in my heart for the 50 kilo North Korean who was just thrilled, and it's life changing. So that was good.
Next category, best interviewee. So this is the person when you get the interview, they give the best content, give insight. I had a ton on here. It could be even deeper than this, but I picked a few. Sarah Sterner was fantastic from North Central this year, gave a great interview. Alyssa Randalls and Julie Slider, they gave a great tandem interview. Just thought they had great insight. Faith Bain opened up about her getting bullied and what wrestling has meant to her. That was just an impactful interview. Amelia Murphy from King was just so candid and insightful and just really showed that she's articulate, and that is the sister of Rhiannon Murphy. So just loved what she had. Jameson Strickland never had an interview quite like hers. She's in high school, love what she did. And then Victoria Carbonero showed what she can do in interviews. But for me, it's Jacqueline Bazakis time and time again for a high schooler to be able to give that much depth, that much insight. It's always fun to interview Jacqueline Bazakis, and she's always in that situation because she's getting interviewed because she wins. But Jacqueline Bazakis, time and time again, for a high schooler, even if she wasn't in high school, she gives fantastic interviews. For me, it's Jacqueline Bazakis.
Bazak is very good, very good interviews, and you have more insight into this than I do because you interview all these people. I'm going to go with Kayla Miracle. Actually, I really like hearing her talk about wrestling, and I think she's very honest and direct and very insightful and knows the sport very well. She coaches now, and as well as being a math teacher, and I just think she's I just like hearing her talk about wrestling. I love hearing, and I think Helen's a great interviewee, and she could beat a little more and got interviewed more, but I think my daughter Michaela Beck's pretty good in interviews as well.
Next category, toughest domestic weight class. I had four that came to my list. 76 kilograms. Went down a little bit when you miss out on Adeline Gray is leaving. You have Kennedy Blades drop down. You still had some tough ones there with Yelena McCoy, Diamond Guilford, Kylie Welker. 62 kilograms was tough. Adugo, Alara Boyd, Kayla Miracle. 59 got really tough with some senior world team members. You had Michaela Beck, you had Alexis Janiak. But I think throughout the course of the year, we talked about 110 collegiately, which is comparable to 50 kilograms. I think with Audrey Jimenez, you had Sage Mortimer at times. You had that depth in the college level. I think 110, 50 kilograms was the toughest weight class domestically this year.
Very deep, but I'm going to go with 62 kilos. I just think between, the combination of Miracle, Adugo, Boyd, and then, you have Cosme and some others that, have been there that, depending on the allowance or not. I think 62, where you have just very, very deep weight class. So I'm going to go with that.
The next category, most guts, least time. I had to explain this to you because it's not the most gut wrenches in the least amount of time. It's the most guts, what you put on the mat when you have 5 seconds left, 3 seconds left. How gutsy are you when the clock expires and you have to go and get a takedown to get the win? I had Helen at the Worlds as a nominee with her coming through and getting the clutch win at the 2025 World Championships. Bellamere has done that. She's shown it time and time again, even if she doesn't win. But I think it has to be Sage Mortimer, Grand Valley State. She's also one of those, even if she doesn't win, she's going to throw it on the line every single time. We saw that in the U.S. Open where she was down and she almost beat Katie Gomez at the end. We saw at the All-Star Classic where she had to come from behind against Selena Shotwell, and she won it against Life University. I think it's unquestioned. This is her award. We might need to name it the Sage
The
Mortimer
Mortimer
Least
Award,
Time.
for sure. Yeah, next topic. I mean, how many times is she? I can recall at least two of them. One was at the Bill Farrell, one was somewhere else where she headlocked Samara Chavez in the last few seconds. I mean, there's been a bunch of those. So yeah, this should be the Sage Mortimer Award for sure.
This is a fun one. Rivalry of the year. I had Bullen and Ringasi. And for me, rivalry doesn't necessarily have to be that both wrestlers win matches. I think it's how competitive you are. I think some people say that. I know in the Ringasi Bullen, it went one way, but I think that was a great rivalry. Felicity Taylor versus Brianna Gonzalez. You have two Iowa Hawkeyes going at it. Gonzalez won at the U.S. Open, and then Taylor got the two at Final X and made the world team. Jakara Winchester and Abby Nettie went 3 matches. But I'm going a little off the grid here. Even though this rivalry was in 2024, we had the Iron Maidens documentary come out this year. Lena Rumpler and Avery Ryle had this insane rivalry that happened in 2024. You'll have to watch the documentary because I'm not going to tell you how the matches go. But I thought for me in 2025, with that documentary coming out, that was the best rivalry because of how deep it got, how personal it was, and that we have it documented. Scott, you have the final say on the final award.
I think that Taylor Gonzalez, because of the backstory, with Felicity going a big game and us staying at the Hawkeye Club, and then Gonzalez winning the Open, Taylor coming back, winning Final X. So I think Felicity Taylor and Gonzalez, to me, was the rivalry of the year. And there's other great, the Mortimer Shilson rivalry is back alive and well. And, Shilson came back and dominated at the Bill Farrell, but they've wrestled a lot. And then I think, Miracle and Adugo, is another, healthy rivalry. But I'm going to give it to the Taylor Gonzalez rivalry.
And then, Scott, to close it out, there have been so many people who have been supportive of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show, what we do. I think we need to give recognition to some people for what they have done outside of these traditional awards. Just think, and I have a sheet here, just some people I wrote down. And you always run the risk, Scott, when you do these things of missing someone who's important. So apologies ahead of time if that happens. It's never a slight, it's never intentional. But Shelly Lidecker has been fantastic. We've talked about Everest a lot, but she's given great feedback and has been so supportive. And she has a unique set of skills that transcend the sport, and what she does for Everest and the sport has meant a lot. Think about all the feedback we've gotten from Nathan Williams and Nate Solorio, Mark Tucker, David Mancha. They have been absolutely fantastic in just giving us feedback about the show that has guided a lot of what the topics have been. So to have them behind it and to know that there are fanatical dads like Scott Beck out there. That's what we need for this sport, that we need fanatics like that. And there's others. You have Aaron Scrocky, who's reached out to you and has been a part of that. Jake Hathaway, Joe Palillo. They have been fanatical women's wrestling fans, so it's been a lot of fun to see.
And I think Crazer's dad
Yeah, Kurt Krazer is that way. He's on it and has given us great feedback and has guided what we do on this show. Susan Mano, Bella Mano's mom, has been fantastic. Renee Carbonero, you hear the stories about her being from New Jersey and going to the first Lehigh duel because she wants to support it, and she's been part of this women's wrestling movement from day one. Nikki Macaluso has been fantastic in what she does. You have Taina Fernandez's mom, Trini, who supports and gives us a lot of the footage when we can't get it of Taina Fernandez. Gary Mayab is someone, an assistant coach or associate head coach at the University of Iowa. I have applied his 3-ring policy that if I call someone and they don't answer after 3 rings, I hang up. That's a Gary Mayab concept that I have applied. And then just want to talk about media voices that I think will be the next media representatives to take this forward. I think Olivia Lichty is one of those. We've had Reese Laramendi on the program, and she's done a great job. She was the Who's Number One play-by-play color commentator, and
right.
she's been on the show. She's the future of this. Devin Gomez, who has put herself out there, and time again, she's shown what she can do. This is the path she wants to make. And then just these upcoming coaches. You just mentioned Kenya Sloan the other day in her interview, Delaware State. She's in her 20s, but she is so poised and so confident. She is the future of women's college coaching. She is fantastic.
I watched your interview with her and I was exceptionally impressed, and she just she's young, didn't get a lot of resources, had to do it on the fly, and just her poise and the way she articulates, I was very impressed with her. I think she's going to do a great job.
And then we mentioned Faith Bain earlier. Thanks for sharing your story and being so candid about being bullied and what that's led to. Now she's going to go to Life University. And then we'll end with Juliet Alt, who's been a go-to resource for me. She just turned 16, but she's given me a lot of ideas, led me in the right direction on interviews. So thank you to a number of people that have made women's wrestling grow. This is so fun to be a part of this.
Yeah, it's. I will say, repeat what I say to you all the time. I mean, this is my favorite hour of the week. And a lot of just, I mean, I'm always thinking about wrestling anyway and following it, but I try to now think and frame things that just with the guide to the show, and feedback for us is great, whether it's ideas or, again, we always say this because we want this to be the best that we can do. And we don't have fragile egos. So if we're doing something wrong, we could do something better. We really do appreciate the feedback. And we've been fortunate enough to have a lot of it. And thank you, first and foremost, to all the ladies. You put out a good product and you're wrestling your souls out. Thank you.